Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Krista McGill, and I'm one of 10 in-store nutritionists with Giant Food. And if there was one thing you should know about me, I love my sleep. I very rarely like to compromise on it. And even if I'm shy just an hour or two on what I'm used to getting, I feel it the next day. So I have my nice little comfy robe on here. So I thought today would be a fun chance to talk about how nutrition relates to our sleep. Now, before I do so, I want to let everybody know this is a highly individualized topic. What works for me doesn't always work for you. So let's just keep that in mind. Also, I'm not going to have all the answers for your insomnia problems, but I do think it's important to trace it back to how our nutrition and even lifestyle factors could be preventing us from getting the best sleep possible. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. These are 15-minute webinars. We have 10 minutes of quality information for you, and then we have 5 minutes of real-time Q&A. Send me your questions, and we will be sure to answer them by the time we are finished. Also, your cameras and your microphones have been disabled. No need to worry about me hearing you or seeing you. Let's go ahead and get started. So we know that sleep is necessary for us, and I think it's just good to revisit all the different areas that sleep can spill over into. So when we're getting quality sleep, we're not going to be as stressed. We're going to have that strong immunity to fight off sickness, and we're going to have that ability to focus and stay alert during the day. Research shows that chronic disease is prevented when we get quality sleep, especially cardiovascular disease. Clearly, we're going to have improved moods because when we're not sleeping well, we're cranky and we're irritable. And then lastly, we're going to have the energy to do what we need to do to get through the day. But unfortunately, we're human, and sometimes our sleep patterns do get disrupted. So this cycle isn't going to be true for everyone, but it is important to look and see how that vicious repetition can start. And so usually sleep problems can spill over into poor nutrition and lack of physical activity because you don't have the energy to exercise and work out. Also, with sleep problems, if you're thinking about it, you probably are hitting the snooze button a little more. Maybe you're trying to sleep in as long as you possibly can. Maybe you skip through breakfast or you're not planning those proper meals. And if that happens on a regular basis, you're more likely to give into those afternoon cravings. And usually those are the unhealthy foods. In addition to that, you might be overcompensating and guzzling lots of caffeine to help you stay awake. If you overcompensate, too much caffeine can keep you from falling asleep the next night. So you can kind of see how this cycle can build on the other things. So all I want to do is really just take a look at how we can make improvements with our sleep hygiene. And yes, we want to call it hygiene because we take time to brush our teeth, we take time to shower, but do we hold that same value with our sleep? And if not, I challenge you all to take a look at 3 areas on maybe ways that you can maximize those Z's. So first, looking at your environment, we're also going to explore eating behaviors and habits. And then lastly, we're going to discuss foods that research has been shown to help support a better night's sleep. So looking at our environment, first thing you want to look at is the lighting. And if you have a big window in your room, it might be nice for that natural sunlight, but that same window can be super obnoxious on a Sunday morning if you're trying to sleep. So maybe you want to invest in darkening shades or blackout curtains if that's an issue. Focus on nightstand lights as opposed to overhead lights because they help create a softer ambiance and more of an inviting environment for you. Partner habits can sometimes not be helped if you're with somebody who snores or maybe they toss and turn and they keep you from getting your quality sleep. But technology is something that we could all probably do better on. And if we're working from home, there's obviously a greater temptation to bring the laptop into bed, finish up those assignments. Maybe you're watching TV or maybe you're like me and you're scrolling on your phone. All of that is not very good because that blue screen actually emits a lighting that excites your brain. So your brain is more stimulated when you're looking at technology, preventing you from relaxing and resting. So we can put the technology away. If you're still looking for something to kind of stimulate your brain, read a book, not off of an iPad though, or something like that. You can also download an app where you can listen to soft music, or maybe you can listen to sounds of a rainforest or a beach just to help you relax and calm down from the day. Lastly, the room temperature, we can obviously play around with that. If you're somebody where you wake up really hot or you wake up really cold, there's even mattresses and bed sheets that help regulate body temperature much better. So that might be something worth investing. Next, we want to look at eating behavior and habits. So I had mentioned that poor sleep can often lead to poor nutrition. So when you think about it, if you're not sleeping very well, what happens is your brain will fatigue much quicker during the day. And sometimes our brain sends a mixed signal to our stomach saying that we need to eat when really we don't. It's just that your brain is looking for something to stay alert and stay stimulated. So research shows that people who sleep poorly are more likely to snack and probably consume more calories throughout the day, and therefore that could lead to weight gain or just problems with weight maintenance. The late night snacking can be problematic because remember how I said if you're skipping meals and you're not getting in those proper nutrients, sometimes our bodies will play catch up with us. I've known people where they've gone all day without eating anything. They might eat a late evening meal, and then they tell me that they wake up in the middle of the night absolutely ravenous. And that's just because your body's playing catch up with you. So make sure that you are getting in those consistent meals. On the flip side, sometimes if you've developed an unhealthy habit of snacking late at night and you're not choosing healthy foods, such as foods that are high in saturated fat or refined sugar, those foods actually promote inflammation. And we know that a long-term buildup of inflammation promotes the buildup of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And that on a long-term basis can impede on our quality sleep. So make sure that if you do need a late night snack, it's something that's nutritious. More to come on that here in just a minute. Caffeine is a big one. I think most of us know our caffeine limit, but watch out for some of those evening beverages that might actually keep you from falling asleep, such as dark colas or even hotter iced tea, even chocolate. As much as I love chocolate, it does have a little bit of caffeine, and that might impact your ability to fall asleep. High fat foods, and I just talked about how these high saturated fat foods promote inflammation. They're not good for our cardiovascular system, but also if you've ever had a really high fat meal, it feels like it's just sitting in your stomach. That's because it is. It's taking much longer for your body to break it down and digest. So you might feel really full and uncomfortable and have a hard time getting situated for bedtime. Also, acidic foods can cause heartburn. So if you're somebody who's prone to that, just watch out for foods that do sometimes promote a little more gastric acidity, such as tomato sauce, red wine, and even spicy foods. Alcohol. So this is actually a myth out there. A lot of people think that in order to fall asleep, they might need to have a drink or two of their favorite beverage. But actually, the opposite is true. Yes, alcohol is a depressant, so it is going to make you feel relaxed, and you might drift off to sleep quicker. However, alcohol prevents our bodies from reaching that REM stage, otherwise that deep sleep that we need to hit every night in order to feel rested and rejuvenated the next day. So don't look to alcohol for any of your sleep remedies or any of your other remedies in general. Medications sometimes cannot be helped. In fact, there's quite a few out there that do have the side effect of insomnia, such as thyroid medications, steroids, and even antidepressants. So if you are somebody where you feel like your medication is keeping you from getting that quality sleep, talk to your doctor or even talk to your giant pharmacist next time you're in the store. They might make a recommendation for you to experiment with some sleep aids, such as melatonin. But again, this is a discussion to have with them. And then lastly, physical activity. We know this offers a number of health benefits, but some people report that if they exercise too late in the day, they have a hard time falling asleep. And that makes sense because you're on that exercise high, otherwise known as those endorphins, which can take a little bit longer for your body to come down from. So just make sure that you're finding that happy medium where you're still getting an exercise, but it's not too late in the day that you can't fall asleep. On the flip side, physical inactivity can be just as detrimental. So if you're living a sedentary lifestyle, which is easy for most of us because we're not running and gunning like we used to, so if you're resting for most of the day, by the time bedtime rolls around, you're not really tired. So we really want to try to find that happy medium between physical activity, that it doesn't impede on our sleep, but it gives our body something to recover over during the night when we sleep. Now I want to talk about some foods that research has been linked to help support a better night's sleep. And I think you'll find that what I'm talking about is going to sound very familiar because a lot of it just echoes what the MyPlate recommendations are. We want to focus on those complex carbohydrates because our bodies need energy. In fact, when we turn down for the night, our bodies usually start going to work. And we need that so that we feel rested and rejuvenated and we can recover and just be ready for the next day. We find complex carbohydrates in our whole grains, starchy veggies, our fruits, and even low-fat dairy. So definitely want to make sure that we are incorporating those in our diet. lean proteins are going to have the same effect. They help with the healing and the repairing of our tissues. And then those healthy fats, like what we would find in avocado, olive oil, and even those fatty fish like tuna and salmon, because they have those anti-inflammatory omega-3s. Remember how I talked about cortisol being that component that builds up that we really don't want in our system? Those omega-3s are going to come in and help combat the buildup of cortisol in our systems. Now, if you do need a healthy bedtime snack, just make sure it's just that. It's nutrient dense and it's good for you. And I have some suggestions coming up for you on that. And then lastly, maybe you want to experiment with some of those soothing beverages. Now, before I talk about certain products that research has linked to have compounds that may support a better night's sleep, I do want to throw it out there that if you are somebody where you don't need a bedtime snack, then don't. Incorporate something that you don't need, because remember, we want to snack out of necessity, but every now and then we need a bedtime snack. The other thing I want to make sure is that we want to have some lower expectations with it. So if you see a product on here, such as kiwis, don't start taking a bunch of them thinking that night you're going to sleep like a baby. Sometimes these things take time, and sometimes there's other variables. But I do want to talk about some things that you might find in the grocery store that might help you. So looking at those kiwis, research shows that kiwis are a rich source of melatonin. And we hear melatonin a lot with our sleep because it's a natural hormone that our bodies make, and it helps with our circadian rhythm. So that helps with our wake and our sleep cycle. So I actually came across the research that showed that subjects who had 2 kiwis a day over the course of a month actually improved their average sleep by an hour. So that's pretty cool, but again, it's science. So even though this was something that was found in these subjects, it wasn't valid enough to be a general statement for the public. But something that's really cool that you can see that science is exploring what compounds are in what foods that can help us with our sleep. Other foods that are rich in melatonin are going to be raisins, dates, and even tart cherry juice. Remember, with our juice, it's concentrated sugar, so we really want to stick to 4 ounces and just have that in moderation. Whole grains are another thing to have if you just need a bedtime snack. Skinny Pop popcorn is a great solution because it's a whole grain. It's got a great source of those complex carbohydrates, and it's low fat and it's low in sodium. You can also grab a handful of nuts, particularly almonds and walnuts, just because they're going to give you those good, heart, healthy fats that fight off inflammation. Also, they have protein, so that's great, and almonds are a rich source of vitamin E, which is an antioxidant. Now, speaking of protein, you can also opt for some low-fat cottage cheese, a great source of that protein, but it also has tryptophan. Now, when we hear that word tryptophan, we often think, oh, that's what makes me tired. It's actually tryptophan's role in serotonin production that helps us with our sleep. So research shows that the higher levels of serotonin that you have, the lower levels of cortisol you have. So it's an inverse relationship that we just want to continue to foster and support. So more melatonin and more serotonin. And then lastly, you might want to just look at certain teas that do help with the rest and relaxation in the evening. Sleepy time tea is just that, or maybe you want to look at some other herbal teas, or maybe chamomile tea if that's something that you think would help. You might have heard of that remedy growing up that if you can't sleep, have a glass of warm milk. And even though research hasn't been able to really validate if it works or not, anytime something hits our stomach that's warm and soothing, also has some protein, can help us feel full, and it just might help us fall asleep a little quicker. All right, so doing my research, I found some really cool recipes that could tie in some of those products that I just talked about. Now, you can build a whole evening around this suggestion, or you can just pick apart maybe some things that you think you would like to try. I found a really cool recipe for lasagna that calls for cottage cheese as opposed to ricotta cheese. Remember, cottage cheese is a good source of that tryptophan. The only thing I want to point out with that picture is that there are no veggies on the plate, but you got to realize we as in-store nutritionists are going to say you've got to fill half your plate with some veggies. And I'm thinking a Dole salad kit would be a perfect complement to that to make it a complete meal. If you want a sweet treat that isn't very high in calories and low in saturated fat, fresh fruit trifle would be something delicious to have. And then you can incorporate those kiwis, which are a good source of that melatonin. And then lastly, if you need a little bedtime snack or just something to take the edge off of that hunger, you can grab a handful of those zesty mixed nuts with seeds. In fact, this recipe calls for both almonds and walnuts. So they're a really great nutritious snack to have. So there you have some ideas where you could focus on a meal or maybe a dessert or even a little bedtime snack if you wanted to see if that helps with your sleep. All right, so let me just kind of wrap up everything that we talked about just to maximize those Z's. First, focus on the things that you can change in your environment. We can all put the technology away. We can all play around with that lighting and the room temperature. Remember to focus on that balanced eating, AKA the My Plate recommendation, because you're getting in all those essential food groups, meaning you're getting in all those essential nutrients. If you are somebody where you're struggling to fall asleep and you saw some products there that you haven't tried before, maybe you want to try something new. Remember, there are no guarantees. I had mentioned earlier that sleep is highly individualized, but if it were me and I was having a hard time falling asleep, I might opt for some cherry juice, tart cherry juice. I've actually never had it, but I think I would really enjoy it. And remember, keep your expectations low because there could be other factors going on that are preventing you from getting in that sleep, but always worth a shot. And then don't forget about the exercise, that physical activity. Our bodies were designed to recover and repair our tissues and our muscles as we sleep. So we want to make sure that we're getting in that physical activity and we're not doing it too late in the day that we can't fall asleep. All right, so don't forget, we have a plethora of resources available. And I always like to mention that we as the in-store nutritionists, we're the nutrition experts. We are not the sleep experts. But look at your community resources that you have available. Giant Pharmacy is wonderful. So you can talk to them about medication interaction. I had mentioned earlier that if you are interested in taking a sleep aid or supplement such as melatonin, just talk to them about that. And obviously keep the lines of communication open with your primary care doctor. We have a bunch of other events and resources going on. So just check all of that out and more on our website, which is giantfood.com/nutrition. Remember, the month of May, we have kicked off our Healthy at Home Challenge. Even though we're at week 3, it's still not too late to join. In fact, our week 3 challenge this week is to add those whole grains. Remember, those are really great source of those complex carbohydrates. But our exercise challenge is to try something new, whether it's an online fitness class or maybe it's an app. But either way, if you're interested, just make sure that you send us an email at nutrition@giantfood.com and we'll send you all the information to get you linked up. But as you can see, this is actually really fun. You've got people who are posting on their favorite social media platform. I see Lindsay's oatmeal bowl in the morning, so that's really great. We're seeing other community partners get on board with that. We have other images here. We see Tu, who did a media segment through Skype, and she was sharing all about the Healthy at Home Challenge. So again, if you're really interested, we'd love to have you sign up. It's not too late. So just make sure that when you do participate in our Healthy at Home Challenge, just tag at Giant Food. And don't forget to hashtag Giant Food Challenge, hashtag Healthy at Home. All right, cool, guys. I have just a couple minutes left for Q&A. Sorry, I'm a chatty Cathy. I always go over time. But all right, let me just open up these questions here real fast. First question is, what are the recommendations for sleep? So I didn't mention that. So thanks for letting me revisit that. So according to the National Sleep Foundation, adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Now this is going to vary. Obviously, children are going to need longer sleep hours. But I do want to mention that website is a wealth of knowledge. So head to that website if you do have other inquiries about sleep and maybe what you can do to improve on that. Okay. Why do certain foods give me bad dreams? Good question. So actually, in doing research, I really couldn't find a connection, and I don't think science has found that link between certain foods causing bad dreams or nightmares. So it is going to vary on an individual basis. But if you know that certain foods react that way, then just try to abstain from them. All right, second to last question. Should I take melatonin? So yeah, that probably came up somewhere during the presentation that, yeah, you should probably just talk to the Giant Pharmacist, talk to your own primary care doctor. I have melatonin on hand when I really, really can't sleep, although it does give me very, very vivid, intense dreams. So I kind of wake up the next day like, what just happened? But it is worth it to me to make sure that I get in that quality sleep. So I don't take it all the time, just kind of on an emergency as needed basis. So you can try it. There might not be any harm, but it's just something worth discussing with your medical providers and your Giant Pharmacist. Okay. A last question before we're out of time. Does age have something to do with sleep problems? So it actually might, because as we age and there's hormone imbalances and changes, sometimes that can spill over and impair your ability to sleep. So once again, sorry to keep deferring to doctors and Giant Pharmacists, but that's exactly what we're here for. You know, we're here as a team collaboratively to just help you with your health and wellness goals. Don't be afraid to ask these questions so we can just defer and help you achieve your wellness goals. Okay, guys, I'm all out of time. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you all here tomorrow with another great episode of our Nutrition at Noon webinar series. Until then, you guys stay happy, stay healthy, sleep well, and we'll see you guys here tomorrow. All right, bye.